Ethan Cole's headlights cut through sheets of rain on Highway 47, illuminating a figure that shouldn't exist. A barefoot woman in an evening gown, staggering between lanes like a ghost hunting for release. His daughter Maya slept peacefully in the back seat, oblivious to the impossible choice forming in her father's mind. Every instinct screamed danger. His phone showed 11:47 p.m. His bank account showed $84.32. His body showed exhaustion from a double shift that still wasn't enough. He should keep driving. He had his own burdens, his own battles, his own reasons to look away. But Ethan Cole had never been good at choosing the easy path. He pulled over. This is the story of what happened next. How one decision on a rain-soaked highway became the thread that unraveled two broken lives and rewove them into something neither could have imagined. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The Kia's tires hissed against wet asphalt as Ethan eased onto the shoulder, hazard lights painting the rain in rhythmic amber pulses. Through the downpour, the woman seemed almost ethereal, designer dress clinging to her frame, dark hair plastered against pale skin, one hand trailing along the guardrail as if it were the only thing tethering her to earth. "Stay here, baby girl," Ethan whispered. Though Maya remained deep in sleep, clutching the stuffed elephant he'd salvaged from a thrift store 3 Christmases ago. The rain hit him like cold fists the moment he stepped out. Ma'am, you can't be out here." She didn't stop walking, didn't even acknowledge him, just kept moving forward with the determined aimlessness of someone who'd surrendered to momentum. Ethan jogged ahead, positioning himself in her path. "Please, it's not safe." Finally, she looked up. Even through the rain and darkness, he could see her eyes, hollow, red-rimmed, focused on something far beyond this highway. The sharp tang of alcohol cut through the smell of wet pavement. "Safe." Her laugh was broken glass. "That's rich. Nothing safe. Not anymore. Let me help you." Ethan kept his voice gentle, the same tone he used when Mia awoke from nightmares. "Let me at least get you out of the rain." "Why?" The word came out slurred but sharp. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've done. What's been done to me. Don't need to. I know it's 42 degrees. You're barefoot and there's a semi coming around that bend every 3 minutes. That's enough." She swayed slightly, studying him with an intensity that felt like an accusation. "You one of those good Samaritan types trying to earn your wings. I'm a mechanic trying to get home to put his kid to bed. But I can't do that knowing I left someone out here." Ethan held out his hand. "Please, 5 minutes. Let me drive you somewhere dry." The woman stared at his outstretched hand, calloused, oil-stained, steady for what felt like an eternity. Then, with a mixture of resignation and defiance, she took it. Her skin was ice-cold. Ethan guided her to the passenger side, opened the door, and helped her settle into the worn seat. Ma stirred slightly as he closed the door, then drifted back to sleep. He cranked the heat to maximum, grabbed the emergency blanket from the trunk, and draped it around the woman's shoulders before climbing into the driver's seat. "Where can I take you?" She pulled the blanket tighter, eyes fixed on the rain streaming down the windshield. "You really want to know? That's why I asked." 1540 Riverside Drive, the North Estates. Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The North Estates, where houses started at $3 million and climbed from there, where people like him only went to fix things for people like her. Okay. He shifted into drive and merged back onto the highway. 1540 Riverside. They drove in silence for several minutes,
call sign.
Only the rhythm of
Ethan
wipers
moved
and
toward
rain
the cockpit.
filling the space.
The flight attendant tried
Ethan
to block
kept
him, but
stealing
the woman
glances
stepped
at his
forward,
passenger,
flashing something
trying
from
to
her leather
reconcile
bag.
the broken woman
A badge,
beside him with
official,
the address she'd given.
unmistakable. "It's
Designer
fine,"
dress,
she told the
even
attendant
soaked
calmly.
manicured
Let him
nails,
through.
even chipped.
Inside the cockpit,
Cheekbones that could
alarms
cut
blinked in
glass,
angry
even
red
softened by
patterns.
tears and rain.
The captain looked pale.
"You always pick
"We've
up
got
strangers."
no power, no
Her
restart,"
voice
he
cut
said.
through his thoughts.
"They're asking for a
"You
call sign
always
like we're
walk
military."
barefoot down highways.
"They think I'm
Touche.
here," Ethan
She
replied.
almost smiled.
The captain
almost.
stared.
"What's your name?
"Are you?"
Good Samaritan."
Ethan reached
Ethan.
for the radio.
Ethan Cole.
His hand trembled
Well,
once.
Ethan
Only
Cole,
once.
I hope you're prepared to
"This
be
is
disappointed.
Ghost 7, he said into
I'm
the
not a
mic,
damsel in
voice steady
distress
and
waiting
clear.
to be rescued.
Repeat.
I'm not
Ghost
going
7
to have some
aboard
grand
civilian
revelation
flight
and thank you
214,
tearfully for
requesting
saving my
glide
life.
vector.
Didn't
There was a
ask
pause,
you to.
then relief
No.
flooded
She
the frequency.
turned to look at him directly
"Ghost
now,
7,
eyes
Eagle
sharp
2
despite the
copies.
alcohol.
We'll guide you in."
Then what do
The
you
woman
want?
stood quietly
To get
behind
you home
him,
safe.
arms folded,
That's it.
as if she had
Everyone
expected this
wants
all
something.
along.
Yeah.
"You knew,"
Ethan's
he
voice
said without
remained
turning.
calm. What do you
I work
think
with
I
the
want?
Federal
A
Aviation
reward,
Administration,
a
she
story to
replied.
tell,
When
a
both
tax
engines went
write-off
out
for your good deed.
simultaneously, we
Maybe
flagged
you
it as
think
more
I'm
than
some
mechanical.
rich, lonely
We
housewife who
cross-checked
will
the
fall
passenger
into the arms
manifest.
of her rugged
Your name
rescuer.
triggered a file.
I think you're someone
Why would the
having a real
FAA
bad
have
night who
my
needed
file?
help.
She
Everything
hesitated,
else
then
is
answered
just
honestly.
noise. The woman
Because you
fell
once
silent
saved a
again,
city
but
by
Ethan
landing
could
where
feel
no
her
one thought
watching
you
him,
could.
reassessing in
He
the back
remembered that
seat.
day,
Maya
the crippled
shifted,
jet,
her
the
small hand
impossible
reaching out
runway,
in sleep to
the way
touch
his
the
wife
back
had
of
smiled
Ethan's
at him
seat,
afterward
a
and
habit
said,
she had
"You
developed
always
after
come
her
home."
mother left, as
He
if
guided the
unconsciously
powerless
making
aircraft
sure he
through the
was still
sky,
there.
listening as the
You have
fighter
a
pilots
kid.
relayed
It wasn't a
headings and descent
question.
angles.
Daughter Maya,
It was not
she's
so different
6.
from before.
Out late.
Fear
I work
still
late.
whispered,
We
but training
manage.
spoke
Where's her
louder.
mother?
Outside
Ethan's
the
jaw
window, the
tightened
runway
almost
appeared like a thin
imperceptibly.
gray
Gone
thread.
has been for 3
Speed's
years.
dropping, the
Dead
captain
or
warned.
gone?
Hold
Gone.
it,
Does it
Ethan
matter?
murmured.
I
The
suppose
cabin
not.
was silent
The
now.
woman pulled the
Even
blanket
Lily had
tighter.
stopped crying.
Both leave
The wheels
holes.
touched
They
hard,
drove through
the plane
increasingly
skidded,
upscale
shuddered,
neighborhoods,
metal
the houses
protesting
growing
against
larger and
asphalt.
farther apart,
For a terrible
until Ethan
second,
turned onto
Ethan thought they
Riverside
would veer
Drive.
off. Then they
When he saw
stopped.
1540, he
Stillness.
almost
No
laughed.
flames, no
It
smoke.
wasn't a house.
Just
It
breathing.
was a statement.
The
All
cockpit
glass and
erupted
steel
in
in dramatic
exhalations and
angles perched on a
disbelieving laughter.
hillside like a challenge
Ethan
to
stepped
gravity
back from the
itself.
controls.
Here
When
he
he
couldn't
returned
keep
to
the
row 8,
surprise from his
Lily
voice.
launched herself into his
Disappointed.
arms.
Her
"You
tone
fixed
had
it,"
turned
she
bitter
whispered.
again.
He
Were
held
you
her
expecting
tightly.
some
"We
middle-ass
fixed
ranch
it."
where your
The
working-class
woman stood in the
heroism would
aisle,
feel more
gathering her
appropriate?
bag.
I
"Who
was
are you?"
expecting
he
you to live
asked.
somewhere and
She
you do.
considered him for a
That's
moment.
all. Ethan
"Someone who
pulled
knew
into
the
the
sky
circular
wasn't
driveway.
finished with you,"
The
she
Kia
said
looking
gently.
like a stray
He
dog among
noticed
show
something
horses.
then. A small
Security
silver
lights
pin on her
blazed on,
lapel, a
illuminating
pair of wings,
landscaping that
military
probably
issue.
costs more than his
"You
annual
weren't
income.
just FAA," he
Well,
said.
the woman made no
"No,"
move to get
she
out.
admitted.
Here
"I
we
flew
are.
search and
The
rescue.
castle, the
We once
fortress, the
scrambled to
gilded
find a
cage.
downed jet
You
with the
need
call
help getting
sign Ghost
inside.
7.
Why?
You got yourself
Afraid I'll
home
drown
before
in
we
my
could
own
reach you."
fountain.
Their
Worried
eyes
you'll hurt
held.
yourself on those
"You
stairs.
gave a lot," she
Ethan
continued
nodded toward
softly.
the entrance.
"Today,
They
you took
looked
something
slick.
back."
She studied him
Boarding
again with that
stairs rolled
unsettling
toward the plane.
intensity.
Emergency
You're
crews
serious.
waited below.
You actually
The
give a
world
damn
resumed
whether
its
some drunk
noise.
stranger
As she
makes it
stepped
through her
toward the
front
exit,
door.
she paused.
Yeah, I
"Row
do.
8 suited
Why?
you," she said
Because
with a faint
everyone
smile.
deserves to
"But
make
you
it
don't
home
have to
safe.
stay quiet
Even
forever."
people having the
Then she
worst
was
night of
gone.
their lives,
Ethan looked
especially
at
them.
Lily, at the sunlight
Something
spilling across
flickered
the
across
cabin,
the woman's
at the
face.
ordinary miracle of
Surprise,
being
pain,
alive.
something
For
softer
years,
that was
he had
immediately
believed the most
buried.
important
She
chapter of his
fumbled with the
life
door
ended with
handle,
loss.
movements clumsy.
But as the doors
Ethan
opened and
came
fresh
around
air
to
rushed
help her
in,
out,
he
offering his
realized
arm.
something
She
simple and
took it,
startling.
leaning more
The
heavily than
sky had
pride
asked
probably
for his
wanted to
name,
admit.
and he had
The
answered.
front steps were indeed slick, and the woman stumbled twice on the way up. Each time, Ethan steadied her without comment, without judgment, just quiet support. At the door, she fumbled in a small clutch he hadn't noticed before, producing a key card that took 3 tries to work. The door swung open onto a foyer that belonged in an architecture magazine. Soaring ceilings, abstract art, furniture that looked like it existed purely to be admired. Cold, beautiful, utterly impersonal. "Home sweet home," she said flatly. Ethan helped her inside, making sure she was steady on her feet. "You going to be okay?" "Why do you care?" "Because I do. You need me to call someone. Friend, family." Her laugh was hollow. "If I had those, I wouldn't have been walking down a highway. But thank you for the reminder of what I don't have." "I didn't mean no, you didn't mean anything except kindness." "I know." She waved him off, trying to gather the shreds of her dignity. "You can go now. Your good deed is done. Tell your daughter about the crazy rich lady you saved. Make it a cautionary tale." Ethan held her gaze. "Take care of yourself, ma'am. It's Victoria." The admission seemed to cost her something. "My name is Victoria Hale. Take care of yourself, Victoria." He turned to leave, had almost reached the door when her voice stopped him. "Ethan. Yeah, I meant what I said about everyone wanting something. You should, too. People like me, we eat people like you for breakfast. We take and give nothing back. You should have kept driving, probably." Ethan gave her a small sad smile. "But I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't. You're a fool. Been called worse. Good night, Victoria." He walked back to his car where Maya was starting to stir. As he buckled himself in, he glanced back at the glass fortress. Victoria stood in the doorway, blanket still wrapped around her shoulders, watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Then the door closed, and she was gone. "Daddy." Ma's sleepy voice came from the back seat. "Where are we?" "Just making a stop, baby girl. We're going home now." Did you help someone?" Ethan pulled out of the driveway, watching the mansion shrink in his rearview mirror. "I tried to." "That's good. You always help people. Sometimes that's all we can do." Maya was asleep again before they hit the main road. Ethan drove through the rainwashed streets back toward the small apartment they called home, trying to shake the image of Victoria Hale standing alone in that beautiful empty house. He had no way of knowing he'd see her again. No way of knowing that moment, that single choice to stop, had just set in motion a chain of events that would reshape both their lives. All he knew was that he'd done what felt right, and sometimes that had to be enough. Cole's auto repair sat wedged between a laundromat and a closed-down pawn shop on the east side of town, where the rent was cheap, and the clientele were people who needed their cars fixed more than they needed them detailed. Ethan had worked there for 8 years, the last 3 as the sole employee after old man Henderson died, and the shop passed to his nephew Marcus, who preferred collecting rent to getting his hands dirty. It was a good setup, mostly. Ethan got free rein to run things, kept 60% of the profits, and had flexibility when Mia needed him. The downside was that 60% of struggling often equaled very little, and Marcus had mentioned selling more than once. Ethan arrived at 7 the next morning. Maya secured at the before-school program she attended at Lincoln Elementary. The rain had cleared overnight, leaving everything with that washed clean smell he normally loved, today. It just reminded him of Victoria Hale and those hollow eyes. "Shake it off," he muttered, unlocking the bay doors. "Not your circus, not your monkeys." The morning passed in its usual rhythm. An oil change on a Honda with 200,000 meters. Brake pads on a Chevy that should have been replaced 6 months ago. A diagnostic on a Ford that was making a sound Ethan's customer described as like an angry cat in a blender. Normal, predictable, safe. He was elbow deep in the Ford's engine when he heard heels on concrete. Heels in his shop. That was unusual enough to make him straighten up and turn around. The woman standing in his garage wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his car. Her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, subtle makeup highlighting features that looked carved rather than grown. She held herself with the kind of posture that came from boardrooms and country clubs. Chin slightly raised, shoulders back. It took Ethan a solid 5 seconds to recognize her. "Victoria. Mr. Cole." Her voice was crisp, professional, completely unlike the broken slur from the night before. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Ethan grabbed a shop rag, wiping grease from his hands, mind racing. "No, I was just how did you find me?" "License plate database. I have resources." She glanced around the shop with an appraising eye. "This is yours. I work here. Owner's someone else." "I see." Victoria took a few steps deeper into the garage, heels clicking against oil-stained concrete. In the harsh fluorescent light, Ethan could see the faint shadows under her eyes, the only evidence of last night's storm. "I came to thank you for last night." "You already did." "Well, sort of." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Yes, I was not at my best. I wanted to apologize for how I spoke to you and to properly express my gratitude." She reached into her bag, designer naturally, and pulled out an envelope. "Please consider it a token of appreciation." Ethan didn't take it. "That's not necessary. Mr. Cole." Ethan, she adjusted, though the name seemed to require effort. "What you did was kind. Let me reciprocate." "I didn't do it for reciprocation. I did it because it was right." Victoria's hand remained extended, envelope suspended between them. "Most people don't operate that way." "Then, most people are missing the point." They stood in silence, the moment stretching. Finally, Victoria lowered her hand, tucking the envelope back into her bag. "I see you're one of those." "One of what?" "Someone who actually means what they say." "It's refreshing and mildly infuriating." Ethan almost laughed. "Been called worse." "I imagine you have." Victoria's gaze swept the shop again, this time more carefully. "How long have you worked here?" 8 years. "Why?" "Just curious. You seem good at what you do. Good enough to keep people's cars running." "That's the job. And it pays well." Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. "It pays enough. May forgive me. I'm being intrusive." Victoria shifted. A crack in that polished armor. "I'm not good at this." Genuine gratitude. "Most of my transactions are transactional. This doesn't have to be a transaction." "Then what is it?" "Two people who cross paths, that's all." Victoria studied him with that same intensity from the night before, like she was trying to solve an equation that shouldn't exist. "You really believe that?" "Why wouldn't I?" Because in my experience, everyone has an angle. Everyone wants leverage. You pulled a drunk woman off a highway, drove her home, made sure she got inside safely, and now you're refusing payment. That doesn't compute. Ethan set down the rag, meeting her eyes fully. Maybe your experience has been with the wrong people. Maybe. Victoria's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Or maybe I've become one of them. Before Ethan could respond, his phone buzzed. School. His stomach dropped as he answered. Mr. Cole, this is Principal Martinez. Maya's fine, but she's in my office. There was an incident at recess. I'll be right there. Ethan hung up, already moving toward the small office to grab his keys. I'm sorry, I have to go. My daughter's school. Is everything all right? Don't know yet. I need to go. Of course. Victoria stepped aside. I hope she's okay. Ethan paused at the door. Thank you for coming by for the apology. You didn't have to. I did, actually. It was the least I could do. Their eyes met one more time, and something passed between them, understanding maybe, or recognition of wounds that matched, even if their shapes were different. Then Ethan was gone, leaving Victoria standing alone in the garage, surrounded by tools and engine parts, and the lingering smell of motor oil, feeling more out of place than she'd ever felt in a boardroom, and yet somehow less alone than she'd felt in years. But Lincoln Elementary's principal's office smelled like old textbooks, and the lemon cleaner they used on everything. Maya sat in one of the chairs outside the office, arms crossed, lip trembling, but eyes defiant. A bruise was forming on her cheek. Ethan's heart seized. Baby girl, what happened? He knelt in front of her, gently tilting her face to examine the bruise. I'm fine. But her voice cracked. Mr. Cole. Principal Martinez, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and steel in her spine, gestured him into the office. Maya, stay here, please. We'll just be a moment. Inside, Martinez closed the door inside. Maya got into a fight. Maya doesn't fight. She did today. 3 boys were teasing another student about his clothes. Maya intervened. It got physical. Ethan's stomach twisted. She threw the first punch. Actually, no. But she didn't walk away when she should have. We have a zero-tolerance policy on fighting, Mr. Cole. I have to suspend her for the rest of today and tomorrow. I understand. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. But for the record, if she was defending someone, I know, and between you and me, those boys deserved worse than Maya's right hook. But rules are rules. Martinez's expression softened. She's a good kid, Ethan. You're raising her right. Sometimes right looks like trouble. Story of my life, Ethan stood. I'll take her home. Is there anything else? Just maybe have a talk about choosing battles. The world's not always going to appreciate her standing up for people. Maybe the world should. Martinez smiled. Maybe it should. Maya didn't speak on the drive home, just stared out the window with that stubborn set to her jaw that reminded Ethan painfully of her mother. Not until they were inside their apartment, 2 bedrooms barely, with furniture that came from 3 different thrift stores and walls thin enough to hear neighbors' conversations, did she finally break. I'm not sorry. The tears came then, hot and fierce. They were being mean to Danny. He can't help that his shoes are old. Mine are old, too. Everybody's shoes are old except theirs, and they think that makes them better, and it doesn't, and I told them so, and then Tyler pushed me, so I pushed back harder. Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her while she cried against his chest. I know, baby girl. I know. Are you mad? I'm proud you stood up for your friend. I'm worried you got hurt. I'm frustrated you're suspended because I have to work. I'm a lot of things, but mad isn't one of them. Maya pulled back, wiping her eyes. I told them you teach me that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. That's what you always say. I do say that. Were you mad when I said it? Ethan smiled despite everything. No, sweetheart. I wasn't mad. Good, because it's true. She touched her bruised cheek experimentally. Does it look tough? Incredibly tough. Cool. The afternoon stretched ahead of them, unexpected and complicated. Ethan called Marcus, explained the situation, got the predictable sigh and reminder that family emergencies don't pay the bills. He'd lose half a day's work, maybe more. They'd eat rice and beans for dinner again. The electric bill would be late again. But Maya curled up on the couch with a book from the library, bruise and all. And Ethan remembered what mattered. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello, Mr. Cole. Ethan, it's Victoria Hale. I hope I'm not overstepping, but I wanted to follow up about earlier. Is your daughter all right? Ethan moved to the kitchen, lowering his voice. How did you get my number? Same way I got your address. Resources. Is she all right? She's fine. Got suspended for fighting. Fighting. Victoria sounded genuinely surprised. She doesn't seem the type. She's not. But some kids were bullying her friend. And Maya has opinions about that. A pause. Then unexpectedly, Victoria laughed. A real laugh, not the bitter mockery from last night. Like father, like daughter. What's that supposed to mean? It means you both stop for people in storms, even when it costs you. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. I'm sorry about the suspension, Victoria continued. I imagine that complicates your work situation. We'll manage. We always do. I'm sure. But if you need Victoria, I appreciate the thought. Really, but we're okay. Another pause. Longer this time. When Victoria spoke again, her voice had lost some of its polish. Can I ask you something? Sure. Last night when you stopped, did you know who I was? No. Did it matter? It should have. Do you know who I am now? Ethan glanced toward the living room where Maya was absorbed in her book. Should I? Most people do. I run Hale Innovations. We develop AI systems for corporate infrastructure. 12,000 employees. Forbes 500. I've been called the Ice Queen of Silicon Valley more times than I can count. Okay, that's it. Just okay. What else should I say? You want congratulations. You want me to be impressed. You told me who you are. I heard you. Doesn't change anything. It changes everything for most people. Then most people are shallow. Victoria made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. You're infuriating. Second time you've said that. I mean it more the second time. A breath. Thank you, Ethan. For what? For treating me like a person instead of a resume. That's not something you should have to thank someone for. And yet, Victoria's voice steadied. I need to go. Board meeting in 20 minutes, but I wanted to check on you on your daughter. We're good. Thanks for calling, Ethan. Yeah, if you change your mind about help or anything, my card is in the envelope I tried to give you. I left it on your workbench. Before Ethan could respond, she hung up. He stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, trying to process the surreal turn his life had taken. 24 hours ago, Victoria Hale was a stranger on a highway. Now she was calling to check on his daughter, leaving her number, breaking through the careful walls Ethan had built around his small, manageable world. Daddy, Maya called from the living room. Can we have pancakes for dinner? We had pancakes last night. But they're good and happy and we could use happy. Ethan smiled. Yeah, we could. Pancakes it is. As he pulled out the mix and tried not to calculate how many meals remained before grocery shopping could happen again, Ethan made a decision. Tomorrow he'd throw away Victoria's card. Tonight he'd make his daughter smile. Some things were simple. Others he was beginning to realize were about to get very complicated. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight was for pancakes. Ethan didn't throw away the card. He told himself he would. Told himself every morning for 3 days while it sat on the corner of his workbench, crisp white cardstock with embossed letters that caught the light. Victoria Hale, Chief Executive Officer, Hale Innovations. A cell number written in elegant script on the back. On the 4th day, he slipped it into his wallet without really deciding to. Just in case, he told himself. Just in case of what? He didn't examine too closely. Ma's suspension ended and life resumed. Its familiar rhythm. School work, the careful mathematics of stretching too little across too much. Ethan fixed a transmission on a Dodge, replaced a timing belt on a Toyota, and tried not to think about ice queens and glass houses on hillsides. He failed spectacularly. It was the bruise on Maya's cheek that kept bringing Victoria back to mind. The way it had faded from purple to yellow-green over the course of a week, a visible reminder of his daughter's fierce heart. Maya wore it like a badge of honor, telling anyone who asked that she'd gotten it, defending her friend that doing right mattered more than staying safe, just like her father had taught her, just like he'd done on a rain-soaked highway. The parallel sat uncomfortably in Ethan's chest, a question he couldn't quite articulate. He'd stopped for Victoria because walking away felt impossible. Maya had fought for Danny for the same reason. Neither of them had calculated cost or benefit, just acted on the bone-deep certainty that some things required showing up. Consequences be damned, but consequences had a way of catching up. It was a Tuesday afternoon, unseasonably warm for March, when Marcus showed up at the shop. He never showed up at the shop. That alone was enough to make Ethan's stomach drop. "We need to talk." Marcus didn't even bother with pleasantries. Just stood there in his 2 white sneakers and golf shirt, looking everywhere except at Ethan's face. "About what?" "I'm selling. Got an offer from a developer. They want to tear down this whole block, put up condos or some good money." "Really good money." The socket wrench in Ethan's hand suddenly felt very heavy. "When?" 60 days. "I wanted to give you notice. Let you find something else." 60 days. Ethan set down the wrench carefully. Precisely like if you move too fast something would shatter and the shop gone along with the laundromat and everything else. Progress, right. Marcus had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Look, man, I'm sorry, but this is life-changing money for me. I can't pass it up." "No, of course not." Ethan's voice came out flat. "Life-changing. You'll land on your feet. You're good at what you do. Hell, maybe you can find another shop. Make a better deal than what we got." Ethan almost laughed. Another shop. Like they grew on trees. Like landlords were lining up to rent to mechanics with barely any capital and a 6-year-old daughter. Like the 60% he'd been scraping by on was actually savings instead of survival. "Yeah, maybe." Marcus lingered another moment, perhaps hoping for absolution that didn't come, then left. Ethan stood alone in the garage bay, surrounded by tools and parts and the smell of oil that had been his life for 8 years, and tried to figure out what came next. His phone was in his hand before he realized he'd moved. Victoria's card already pulled up in his contacts, thumb hovering over the call button. No. He closed the phone. This wasn't her problem, wasn't her responsibility. He'd figure it out the same way he always did, carefully, methodically, one impossible step at a time. But that night, lying awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, while Mia slept peacefully in the next room, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on a highway again, watching something slip away into the dark. The thing about pride, he'd learned, was that it kept you warm right up until it killed you. He called Victoria at 7:30 the next morning before he could talk himself out of it. She answered on the second ring. Ethan. Not a question. She'd saved his number. That realization hit him sideways. "Hey, is this a bad time? I'm in my car heading to the office." "What's wrong? What makes you think something's wrong? You're calling at 7:30 on a Wednesday, and you sound like you're walking to your execution." Ethan exhaled. "The shop's being sold, torn down. I've got 60 days. Silence on the other end. Long enough that Ethan wondered if the call had dropped. "Victoria, I'm here. Just thinking." A pause. "What do you need?" I'm not asking for anything. I just thought you should know since you left your card since you said if I needed anything." "But you don't need anything." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." Victoria's voice softened. "What would help, Ethan? If pride wasn't a factor, what would actually help?" The question lodged in his throat. What would help was a miracle. What would help was a complete rewiring of economic reality. What would help was for the world to care about people like him instead of just using them up. "Time," he said finally. "Time to find something else. Time to build something that won't get torn down the second someone waves enough money around." Okay, let me see what I can do. No promises, but let me look into it." "Victoria, I can't." "You can't what?" "Accept help. Let someone return a favor." "Ethan, you literally pulled me off a highway when I was ready to walk into traffic. Let me make some calls." The words hit him like a physical blow. "You were going to. I don't know what I was going to do. That's the truth. I was drunk and broken and so tired of fighting and I just wanted everything to stop. Then you stopped. And I'm still here." Her voice cracked slightly. "Let me do this, please." Ethan closed his eyes. "I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's investment. You're good at what you do. You care about your work. That's rare. Let me help you keep doing it." "Why?" "Because you showed me that not everyone in this world is a shark. Because your daughter got suspended for defending her friend. Because you make pancakes when things are hard." Victoria laughed, but it sounded fragile. "Because I've spent 10 years building an empire, and I can't remember the last time I did something that actually mattered. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me try. That's all. Just let me try. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. I'll call you later. She hung up before Ethan could second-guess himself into oblivion. He stood in his small kitchen, coffee growing cold in his hand, and wondered what he just set in motion. Maya emerged from her bedroom, hair wild from sleep, clutching her stuffed elephant. Who were you talking to? A friend. You sounded worried. Just grown-up stuff, baby girl. Nothing for you to worry about. Maya climbed into her chair at the small table, fixing him with a look far too knowing for 6 years old. Is it about the shop? How do you know about the shop? I heard you on the phone yesterday. You said 60 days. She swung her legs, heels kicking the chair. Are we moving again? Ethan's heart cracked. They'd moved 3 times in the past 4 years. Always chasing cheaper rent. Always one crisis away from another upheaval. Maya had learned to pack her life into 2 boxes and not get attached to bedrooms. I don't know yet, sweetheart. I'm working on it. And the lady you're friends with, can she help? Maybe. Why? She sounded sad on the phone when she called about my suspension, like she was trying to remember how to be happy. Maya tilted her head. You sound like that sometimes. Ethan sat down across from her, marveling at how children could see straight through all the armor adults built. Do I? When you think I'm asleep, you sit in the kitchen and you're very quiet. But it's a loud kind of quiet. Like the quiet is actually really, really loud. That's very wise, baby girl. I know. She grinned. I'm smart like you. You're smarter than me, obviously. They ate breakfast. Generic cereal with milk stretched thin enough to see through and got ready for their day. Ethan dropped Maya at school. Watching her run toward the building with her backpack bouncing and felt the familiar squeeze of love and terror that came with parenting. So much could go wrong. So much depended on things outside his control. But she was brave and kind and fierce. Whatever else he'd failed at, he'd gotten that right. The shop felt different that day. Every tool and bolt suddenly precious because they were temporary. Ethan worked through his cue, an alignment, an oil change, a mysterious rattle that turned out to be a loose heat shield with the efficiency of long practice. But his mind kept wandering to Victoria's voice on the phone, the crack in her composure, the raw admission that she'd been ready to disappear. He'd saved her life. He hadn't let himself think of it in those terms before. Hadn't wanted the weight of it. But there it was, unavoidable. If he'd kept driving, Victoria Hale might not have made it through that night. And now she wanted to save something for him. His phone rang just after 3. Victoria, I talked to some people, she said without preamble. The developer buying your block is called Riverside Properties. They're a subsidiary of a larger firm. I made some calls, pulled some strings, and I might have convinced them to offer you first right of refusal on any commercial space in the new development. Ethan nearly dropped his phone. What? It's not perfect. You'd still need to relocate during construction, but once the building's done, you'd have an option to lease below market rate locked in for 10 years. Victoria, that's I can't afford. I negotiated a subsidy program, part of their community development initiative, which didn't exist until an hour ago, but now it does. She sounded almost smug. You'd pay 30% below market for the first 5 years. After that, renegotiation based on your revenue. Ethan sat down hard on a rolling stool. Why would they agree to that? Because I made it very clear that Hale Innovations is looking to invest in this area. We're expanding our physical footprint, need local partnerships, and I specifically mentioned wanting to support businesses that provide essential services to working families. They want our money. I want you to have a shop. That's Jesus, Victoria. That's incredible. It's strategy. They get good PR. I get to feel useful. You get to keep working. Everyone wins. There's got to be a catch. The catch is you have to survive the next 18 months while they build. Can you do that? 18 months. Ethan's mind raced through calculations. He'd need to find a temporary location, move all his equipment, maintain his client base, keep Maya fed and housed and safe. It would be tight. Painfully tight, but possible. Yeah, I can do that. Good. I'll have my lawyer draw up the preliminary agreements. You should probably get a lawyer to review everything before you sign. I don't have a lawyer. Then I'll find you one pro bono. Consider it part of the package. Victoria, don't thank me. Don't argue. Just accept that this is happening, please. Ethan exhaled slowly. Okay. But I need to ask you something. What? That night on the highway, you said you didn't know what you were going to do. Did you mean that? Were you really that close? The silence stretched so long, Ethan thought she'd hung up. Yes. The word came out barely above a whisper. I just found out my COO, someone I'd trusted for 8 years, had been embezzling. My board was moving to remove me. My ex-husband's lawyers were circling for another round of blood. I had no real friends, no family, just business contacts and people who wanted things from me. And I was so tired, Ethan. So tired of fighting, of being strong, of pretending I was anything other than completely alone. You're not alone now. No. A bitter laugh. What am I then? You're the woman who's about to save my shop. You're the person who called to check on my daughter. You're someone who matters. I matter because I'm useful. Because I have resources to throw at problems. You matter because you showed up. Because you cared enough to make those calls, fight those fights. That's not resources, Victoria. That's character. Another long silence. I don't know how to do this, she said finally. How to be a person instead of a position. Everyone wants something from me. Everyone has an agenda. How do I trust that you're different? I guess you can't. Not yet. Trust is earned, not given. But I'm not going anywhere. So, you've got time to figure it out. What if I hurt you? What if I'm so broken that I ruin this like I ruin everything else? Then we'll deal with it. But you haven't ruined anything yet, and I'm tougher than I look. Victoria made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. You really are infuriating. So you keep saying I have to go board meeting, but Ethan, yeah, thank you for that night, for this call, for not giving up on me. Same to you. The line went dead. Ethan sat in the quiet garage, phone in hand, and felt something shift in his chest. Not relief exactly, more like the first breath after being underwater too long. He called Maya's school, made sure she could stay for the after program, then spent the rest of the afternoon researching temporary shop locations and making lists, numbers that didn't quite add up, but weren't impossible. Plans that required luck, but not miracles. For the first time in years, Ethan let himself hope. That evening, after picking up Maya and making dinner, spaghetti with sauce from a jar and vegetables he'd stretched across 3 meals. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Catherine Wright, attorney. Victoria Hale asked me to reach out regarding your shop situation. I've reviewed the preliminary terms. Can we meet tomorrow to discuss my office? 2 p.m. No charge for consultation. Ethan texted back. Yes, thank you. Then another message, this time from Victoria. Catherine is good. Trust her. And Ethan, I meant what I said about not being alone. Neither of us has to be. He stared at the message for a long time before responding. No, we don't. Maya appeared in the doorway, toothbrush in hand. You're smiling at your phone. That's weird. Just good news, baby girl. About the shop. Yeah, about the shop. Is your friend helping? She is. Maya nodded sagely. Good. Friends are supposed to help each other. That's what makes them friends. When did you get so smart? I told you I'm smarter than you. She grinned, showing foam from the toothpaste. But you're pretty smart, too, for a dad. High praise. The highest. After Maya was asleep, Ethan sat at the small kitchen table with a notebook and pen, mapping out the next 18 months. Every decision, every risk, every possible pitfall. The numbers were daunting, but they weren't impossible. And for the first time, he wasn't facing them alone. His phone buzzed one more time. Victoria, are you still awake? Yeah, planning. Of course you are. Can I call? Sure. She called immediately. No preamble, no small talk. I need to tell you something. Okay. After you dropped me off that night, I sat in my house for 3 hours, just sat in the dark, trying to understand why you'd stopped, why you'd helped me. I kept replaying it, looking for the angle, the ulterior motive, and I couldn't find one. Because there wasn't one. I know that now. But it broke something in me, Ethan. In a good way. I realized I'd built this entire life where genuine kindness was so rare it seemed suspicious. Where helping someone meant leverage. Where every relationship was transactional. She paused. That's not a life. That's a prison. So change it. I'm trying. This thing with your shop. I know it seems like I'm just throwing money at a problem. And maybe I am. But it's more than that. You showed me that some people actually give a damn about doing right, even when it costs them. I want to be that kind of person again. I want to remember what it feels like to help someone without expecting ROI. Ethan's throat tightened. You're already that person, Victoria. You just forgot for a while. Maybe. A shaky breath. Will you let me be part of your life? Not as a benefactor or a client. Just as someone who wants to know how you're doing, how Maya is doing, someone who cares. Yeah, I'd like that. Really, really. But it goes both ways. You don't get to just check in on me. I get to check in on you, too. Make sure you're eating, sleeping, not working yourself into the ground. Victoria laughed, and this time it sounded almost whole. Deal. Fair warning. I'm terrible at being taken care of. I'm pretty stubborn. I noticed. They talked for another hour about nothing and everything. Maya's suspension, Victoria's impossible schedule, the absurdity of pancakes for dinner, the loneliness of success. It was easy in a way Ethan hadn't expected. Natural, like they'd been having these conversations for years instead of days. When they finally hung up, Ethan felt lighter. Still worried, still facing an uncertain future, but not drowning in it, not alone in it. He climbed into bed and slept deeply for the first time in weeks. Across town, in a glass house on a hillside, Victoria Hale sat in her home office, staring at her reflection in the darkened windows. For years, she'd seen only the CEO, the Ice Queen, the woman who'd clawed her way to the top and lost herself in the climb. Tonight, she saw something different. Someone different. Someone who'd been pulled from a storm and was finally learning to stand in the light. It wasn't redemption. Not yet. But it was a beginning, and sometimes that was enough. The meeting with Catherine Wright lasted 2 hours and left Ethan's head spinning with terms like lease provisos and escalation clauses and developmental contingencies. But the core message was clear. Victoria had essentially guaranteed him a future wrapped in legal language and corporate structures that made it look like standard business practice rather than what it actually was, a lifeline. She's very thorough, Catherine said as she walked Ethan to the elevator, her briefcase clicking against her hip. Victoria, I mean, most clients give me parameters and let me fill in the blanks. She knew exactly what she wanted this agreement to accomplish and wouldn't settle for anything less. What did she want it to accomplish? Catherine smiled, the kind of smile that suggested she knew more than she was saying. Security for you, for your daughter. She was very specific about that part. Any clauses that might put undue financial pressure on a single parent were to be eliminated or restructured. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Ethan stepped inside, then turned back. Can I ask you something? Of course. How long have you worked with Victoria? 6 years. Why? In those 6 years, has she ever done anything like this? Helped someone just to help them? Catherine's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. I'm not at liberty to discuss other clients, but I will say this. I've never seen her fight this hard for something that offered zero strategic value to Hale Innovations. Make of that what you will. The elevator doors closed on Catherine's knowing smile, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts and a folder full of documents that represented more stability than he'd had since Maya was born. He called Victoria from the parking garage. How did it go? She sounded breathless, like she'd been running. Good. Great. Actually. Catherine's incredible. But Victoria, these terms, they're too generous. The subsidy alone is entirely appropriate for the community development initiative I'm spearheading, which is real, by the way. I wasn't lying about that. I just expedited the timeline and made sure you were first in line. Still, Ethan, stop. Please let me do this without you trying to talk me out of it every 5 minutes. You're not taking advantage. You're not being a burden. You're accepting help that you've earned 100 times over just by being a decent human being. That's not how the world works. Then maybe we should change how the world works. Victoria's voice softened. Look, I have a confession. I went by your shop yesterday after you left for the day. I just sat in my car across the street and watched your last client leave. Watched you lock up. Watched you stand there for a minute like you were saying goodbye to something. Ethan's throat tightened. You were watching me. I know it's creepy, but I needed to see it. See what I was fighting for. And Ethan, the way you turned off each light, checked every lock, touched the door frame like it mattered. That shop isn't just a job to you. It's part of who you are. I couldn't let that disappear. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you stopped for a stranger in a storm. I know you raised a daughter who fights bullies. I know you make pancakes when the world feels heavy. I know you're the kind of person who deserves good things, even if you don't believe it yourself. Ethan leaned against his car, bone pressed to his ear, and felt something dangerous blooming in his chest. Not attraction exactly, though there might be some of that, too. Something deeper. Recognition, like finding someone who spoke the same language of quiet sacrifice and stubborn hope. Thank you, he said finally, for all of it. You're welcome. Now, go pick up your daughter and stop second-guessing every kindness that comes your way. Yes, ma'am. And Ethan, I was thinking if you're not busy Saturday, maybe you and Maya would want to come over to my place for lunch or something. No pressure. Just thought it might be nice. Ethan blinked. You want us to come to your house? Is that weird? That's weird. Forget I said anything. No, it's not weird. It's just, are you sure? 6-year-olds aren't exactly known for respecting glass and expensive furniture. I'll hide the valuables, please. I'd really like to meet her properly. And I make a mean grilled cheese. It's literally the only thing I cook well, but I've perfected it. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. Yeah, okay. We'd love to. Really text me the time. He could hear the smile in her voice when she responded. I will see you Saturday. Ethan drove to Maya's school in a daze, trying to process the surreal turn his life had taken. A month ago, his biggest concern was stretching groceries and keeping the Kia running. Now he had legal documents guaranteeing his professional future and lunch plans with a billionaire CEO who made grilled cheese and watched his shop from her car like some kind of benevolent stalker. Life was strange. Maya burst out of the school building like she'd been launched from a cannon, backpack bouncing, braids flying. She'd been in high spirits all week, ever since Danny's mother had called to thank Ethan for raising such a brave daughter. Apparently, the boys who'd been bullying Danny had been moved to a different recess period, and Danny himself had started sitting with Maya at lunch every day. Small victories, they mattered, Daddy. Maya threw herself into his arms with the full-body confidence of a child who'd never doubted she'd be caught. Guess what? What? Mrs. Peterson said my story about the brave mechanic was the best in class. She'd put it on the wall and everything. The brave mechanic. Yeah, it's about you. How you fix things that are broken and make them work again. But it's also about a magic car that can fly because I added creativity. She said the last word carefully like she'd been practicing. Want to hear it? Always. They drove home with Maya reciting her story from memory, complete with dramatic voices and sound effects. It was pure 6-year-old imagination. Cars that ran on rainbows. Mechanics who could speak to engines. Problems solved with kindness and determination. But underneath the fantasy, Ethan heard the truth his daughter understood better than most adults. Fixing broken things mattered. And sometimes the fixing came from caring enough to try. That evening, after dinner and homework and the bedtime routine that never varied, Maya asked the question Ethan had been expecting. Daddy, are we going to be okay with the shop closing and everything? He sat on the edge of her bed, smoothing the blanket she'd had since she was 2. Yeah, baby girl, we're going to be okay. How do you know? Because we always are. And because some good people are helping us this time. The lady from the phone, Victoria. Yeah, her. Maya nodded thoughtfully. She sounds lonely when she talks. What makes you say that? Her voice. It's like she's talking from very far away even though she's on the phone. Like there's a lot of space around her and not many people in it. Ethan marveled again at his daughter's perception. You might be right about that. We should be her friends. Everyone needs friends. We're working on that. Actually, she invited us to her house for lunch on Saturday. Would you like to go? Mia's eyes went wide. To her actual house, the big one you drove her to. The very same. Will there be a pool? Rich people always have pools in movies. I don't know. Maybe. Can I bring Mr. Trunk? She held up her stuffed elephant in case she needs company. He's very good at making people feel better. I think Mr. Trunk would be a perfect guest. Satisfied, Maya settled into her pillows, elephant tucked under her arm. Daddy. Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad you stopped that night when you found her, even if it was scary. Who said it was scary? You did. When you were on the phone with her, you said you were scared, but you stopped anyway. That's the bravest kind of brave. The kind where you're scared, but you do the thing anyway. Ethan kissed her forehead. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just finally noticed. He laughed, turned off her light, and pulled the door almost closed. In the narrow hallway of their small apartment, Ethan leaned against the wall and let himself feel it. The weight, the fear, the fragile hope. Everything was changing. The shop, his routine, the careful walls he'd built to keep the world at arm's length. Victoria was dismantling those walls without even trying, just by showing up, by caring, by refusing to let him carry everything alone. It terrified him. It also felt like breathing after years of holding his breath. Saturday arrived with the kind of perfect spring weather that felt personally designed to mock indoor plans. But Maya was too excited to care, chattering nonstop during the drive to Victoria's house about what rich people might have in their homes. Probably a library with those rolling ladders, maybe. And fancy soap, the kind that's too pretty to use, possibly. Do you think she has a chef? Someone who makes tiny food on big plates? Ethan glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror. I think she said she's making grilled cheese. Rich people grilled cheese is probably different. Maybe with gold flakes. I don't think you can eat gold. You can. I saw it on a cooking show. It's called edible gold leaf and it costs $1 million. Somehow I doubt that. But as they pulled into Victoria's driveway, Ethan felt his own nervousness spike. The house looked even more imposing in daylight. All clean lines and enormous windows that probably cost more than his yearly salary each. What was he doing bringing his daughter to a place like this? What if she broke something? What if Victoria realized how vast the gap between their worlds actually was and regretted everything? The front door opened before they reached it. Victoria stood in the doorway wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking more human than Ethan had ever seen her, and nervous. Definitely nervous. Hi. She smiled, but it was tight. You found it okay. Hard to miss. Ethan gestured at the architectural statements surrounding them. Right. Yes. Come in. Victoria stepped aside, then seemed to notice Maya for the first time. Her expression softened immediately. You must be Maya. Maya clutched Mr. Trunk to her chest, suddenly shy. Hi. I'm Victoria. Your dad has told me a lot about you. He told me about you, too. He said you were having a bad night when he found you. Victoria blinked, clearly not expecting that level of directness. I was. Your dad helped me a lot that night. He's good at helping. It's basically his whole thing. Maya held out the elephant. This is Mr. Trunk. He comes to important visits in case anyone needs comfort. Well, I'm honored to meet you both. Victoria crouched down to Maya's level, taking the offered elephant with appropriate seriousness. Mr. Trunk is very distinguished. Thank you. I've had him since I was little. How old are you now? 6, almost 7, which is basically adult. Victoria laughed and the sound was genuine surprise out of her. Basically, come on, I'll show you around. The house was as intimidating inside as out. Soaring ceilings, abstract art, furniture that looked like it belonged in museums. But Victoria led them through to a kitchen that, while enormous and equipped with appliances that probably cost more than Ethan's car, felt somehow warmer, less showroom, more lived in. I wasn't sure what you liked, Victoria said, pulling out a chair for Maya at the island. So, I got regular cheese, fancy cheese, and cheese that's supposed to be good for kids but honestly tastes like plastic. Regular cheese is perfect, Ethan said quickly. We're not fancy people. Neither am I really. I just have a lot of money. Victoria said it so matter-of-factly that Ethan almost choked. Money doesn't make you fancy. It just makes you able to afford fancier mistakes. Maya giggled. Ethan relaxed a fraction. They fell into an easy rhythm. Victoria at the stove, Ethan finding plates, Mia chattering about school and her friend Danny and the book she was reading about a girl who could talk to animals. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at Maya's observations, and producing perfectly golden grilled cheese sandwiches that were, Ethan had to admit, exceptional. The secret is butter on the outside and mayo on the inside, Victoria explained. And low heat, patience. Most people rush it. Most people don't have a stove that costs more than a car, Ethan observed. True, but the principle holds. Victoria slid a sandwich onto Mia's plate. What do you think? Mia took a bite, chewed thoughtfully. It's really good. No gold, though. Should there be gold? Maya has theories about rich people. Ethan explained. Apparently, you're supposed to have tiny food with gold flakes. Ah, sorry to disappoint. I'm more of a comfort food person. Grilled cheese, tomato soup, pancakes when things are hard. Maya's eyes lit up. Daddy makes pancakes when things are hard, too. He says they're happiness you can eat. Victoria met Ethan's eyes across the island, and something passed between them. Recognition, warmth, the growing acknowledgement that this thing between them, whatever it was, mattered. Your dad's a smart man, Victoria said softly. After lunch, Victoria offered to show Mia the backyard. There was in fact a pool, though Victoria admitted she rarely used it. There was also a garden that was clearly maintained by someone else and a small greenhouse full of plants in various states of neglect. I keep trying to keep things alive, Victoria said, touching a wilting fern. But I travel so much and I forget to water them, and then I come home to corpses. You just need better systems, Ethan said. Timers, drip irrigation. Plants aren't that different from engines. They need the right inputs at the right times. You know about plants. I know about systems. Making things work even when you can't be there constantly watching them. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. That's a good skill. Born of necessity. Maya had found a butterfly and was following it around the garden with intense focus. Victoria watched her with an expression Ethan couldn't quite read. She's wonderful, Victoria said. You're doing an amazing job with her. I'm doing my best. Some days that's not much. It's enough. More than enough. Victoria sat on a stone bench, patting the space beside her. Can I ask you something? Ethan sat. Sure. What happened with her mother? You don't have to answer if no, it's okay. Sarah left when Maya was 3. Said she wasn't cut out for motherhood, for the sacrifice and the smallness of it. She wanted adventure, freedom, a life that wasn't defined by someone else's needs. Ethan watched Maya chase the butterfly. I was angry for a long time. Then I was just sad. Now I'm mostly grateful Maya doesn't remember much. She has this idea of her mom as someone who had to leave for mysterious important reasons, not someone who just didn't want to stay. That's generous of you letting her keep that. Kids need their stories. Need to believe they're loved even when evidence suggests otherwise. Don't we all? Victoria's voice was quiet. My parents died when I was 12. Car accident. After that, it was foster care, then emancipation at 16. I built Hale Innovations from nothing because I was tired of having nothing. Tired of depending on people who left or died or just stopped caring. Ethan reached out, covered her hand with his. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me strong, made me successful, made me into someone who never needs anyone. She laughed bitterly. Right up until I was walking down a highway, ready to let a semi solve all my problems. Victoria, I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because you asked about Maya's mom, and it made me realize we're both building something from broken pieces. You with your daughter, me with my company, trying to create stability when we've never really had it ourselves. Maybe that's why we recognize each other. Maybe. Victoria turned her hand palm up, linking fingers with his. Ethan, I need you to know this thing I'm doing with the shop, with helping you, it's not charity. It's selfish. I need this. Need to know I can be part of something good, that I haven't completely lost the ability to care about people instead of profits. You haven't lost anything. You were just buried under so much armor you forgot what was underneath. And you're helping me remember. We're helping each other. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Maya finally give up on the butterfly and start collecting interesting rocks instead. The sun was warm, the garden peaceful, and for a moment, Ethan let himself imagine a world where this was normal, where he and Maya could exist in spaces like this without feeling like imposters. Where Victoria could be part of their lives without the weight of their economic differences crushing everything. She asked if we could be your friends, Ethan said. Maya, she said, everyone needs friends. Smart kid, the smartest. So, what do you say? Think you can handle being friends with a mechanic and a 6-year-old? Victoria squeezed his hand. I think that sounds perfect. Maya bounded over, hands full of rocks. Victoria, do you have a box? I want to make you a rock collection. These ones are special because they all have at least one flat side. I would love a rock collection. Let's find you a box. They spent the afternoon in unexpected domestic comfort, organizing rocks, attempting to revive dying plants, teaching Mia to swim in a pool that had probably never seen so much splashing. Victoria was surprisingly patient, wading into the shallow end, fully clothed when Mia asked her to, laughing when she got soaked. Ethan captured a moment on his phone. Victoria and Mia heads together, examining a particularly interesting stone. Victoria's face was open, unguarded, genuinely happy. It was a side of her that probably very few people ever saw. As the sun started to sink, casting golden light across the yard, Maya yawned hugely. Daddy, I'm tired. I bet you've been going non-stop for hours. They gathered their things, said their goodbyes. Victoria walked them to the car, reluctant to see them go. Thank you for coming, she said. This was the best day I've had in years. Thank you for having us. Ethan buckled Maya into her seat, then turned back to Victoria. And for everything else, the shop, the lawyer, all of it. I know I keep saying it, but then stop saying it and just accept that this is what friends do. Friends, huh? Friends. Victoria smiled. Maybe more eventually, but friends first, if that's okay. Ethan's heart did something complicated in his chest. Yeah, that's more than okay. He drove home with Maya already asleep in the back seat, clutching Mr. Trunk and a carefully selected rock Victoria had promised to keep forever. The setting sun painted everything in warm gold, and Ethan felt something unfamiliar settling in his chest. Hope. Real hope. Not the desperate kind that came from having no other options, but the kind that came from believing things might actually get better. His phone buzzed at a red light. Victoria. Maya left her jacket. Also, I really enjoyed today. Thank you for letting me be part of your world. Ethan responded, you're not part of our world. You're creating a new one with us. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I like the sound of that. The light turned green. Ethan drove toward home, toward the small apartment that was about to become even more temporary, toward the uncertain future that felt less terrifying every day. Behind him, in a glass house on a hillside, Victoria stood at her window and watched the city lights begin to glow. For the first time in longer than she could remember, the beautiful empty house didn't feel like a prison. It felt like a starting point, and that made all the difference. The jacket became an excuse. Victoria could have mailed it, dropped it off, sent it with a courier. Instead, she texted Ethan 3 days later asking if she could bring it by the shop during his lunch break. And Ethan, who could have easily picked it up himself, said yes without hesitation. She arrived at noon in a sleek black sedan that looked like it cost more than everything in the garage combined, drawing stares from the 2 customers waiting in the small office. Victoria stepped out wearing another expensive suit, heels clicking on concrete. Maya's pink jacket folded carefully over her arm. The contrast was almost comical. Corporate perfection in a world of grease stains and socket wrenches. Special delivery, Victoria said, holding out the jacket. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag, painfully aware of the oil under his fingernails and the sweat on his forehead. You didn't have to drive all the way here. I wanted to. Besides, I've never actually seen you work. Seems like I should know what I'm investing in. It's not glamorous. I don't need glamorous. I need real. Victoria glanced around the shop with genuine interest. Can I watch or would that be weird? It would be weird, but you can stay anyway. So, Victoria stayed. She perched on a stool in the corner, jacket draped across her lap, and watched Ethan diagnose a misfiring cylinder with the kind of focused attention she probably gave board presentations. He tried to ignore her, tried to fall into the familiar rhythm of work, but kept catching himself explaining what he was doing, why it mattered, how the pieces fit together. It's like a conversation, he said, testing the spark plug. The engine tells you what's wrong if you know how to listen. Most people just hear noise, but there's a language to it. Rhythm, tone, timing. You love this. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I do. It's honest work. A car either runs or it doesn't. You can't charm your way out of a blown gasket or negotiate with a broken timing belt. You either fix it or you don't. Victoria was quiet for a moment. I envy that. In my world, nothing is that clear. Everything's negotiation, perception, spin. Truth is whatever you can convince people to believe. Sounds exhausting. It is. She watched him work with something like hunger in her eyes. You know exactly what you're good at, what you're meant to do. I'm not sure I've ever had that certainty. Ethan straightened, wiping his hands again. You built a company from nothing. That takes certainty. That takes desperation. There's a difference. Victoria looked down at Maya's jacket, running her fingers over the fabric. I was so focused on proving I could survive that I never stopped to ask if I was building something I actually wanted. And now I'm standing in a garage watching a mechanic replace spark plugs and feeling more grounded than I have in a decade. She laughed softly. How's that for irony? Before Ethan could respond, his phone rang. The school again. His stomach dropped in the now familiar way. I have to take this. Of course. He stepped into the office, already bracing himself. Hello, Mr. Cole. It's Principal Martinez. Maya's fine, but we need you to come in. There's been another incident. 20 minutes later, Ethan sat across from the principal again. Victoria beside him this time because she'd insisted on coming. Maya was in the hallway and through the window Ethan could see her sitting with rigid dignity. That same defiance set to her jaw. What happened? Ethan asked. Martinez sighed. The boys from the last incident. Their parents complained about the suspension got them back in Maya's recess period. Today they started in on Danny again. Mia intervened verbally this time. No physical contact, but she was loud. And when the monitor tried to separate them, Maya refused to move until Danny was safe. She was protecting her friend. I know, but she also caused a scene, disrupted the yard, and defied a direct order from staff. I can't ignore that. Victoria spoke up for the first time. What consequences did the boys face for bullying? Martinez looked surprised. I'm sorry. Who are you? A friend. And I'm asking, what happened to the actual instigators? They received a warning. A warning. While Maya, who is defending another child from harassment, gets pulled into the principal's office. That seems disproportionate. Ms. Hale. And I'm not trying to overstep, but I'm curious about the school's anti-bullying policy because from where I'm sitting, it seems like the child standing up to bullies is being punished while the bullies themselves get a slap on the wrist. Martinez's expression hardened slightly. Our policies are designed to maintain order and safety for all students. Interesting definition of safety. Does it include emotional safety? The safety to attend school without being mocked for poverty. Ethan put a hand on Victoria's arm. Victoria, let me handle this. But Martinez was already pulling out paperwork. Perhaps you'd like to review our policies yourself, Ms. Hale. We're always open to feedback from concerned community members. I would. And while we're at it, I'd be interested in knowing about the school's funding for anti-bullying programs, professional development for staff on intervention techniques, resources for students dealing with economic stress. Those programs require funding we don't have. Victoria smiled thinly. What a coincidence. I happen to have funding and a foundation that focuses on educational equity. Perhaps we should schedule a meeting to discuss partnership opportunities. Ethan stared at her. Martinez did the same. You're serious, the principal said finally. Completely. My assistant will contact you next week to arrange something. In the meantime, I trust Maya won't be suspended for having the courage to stand up for what's right. Martinez looked between Victoria and Ethan, clearly recalculating. No suspension, but Maya needs to understand she can't disrupt class procedures, even for good reasons. Understood, Ethan said quietly. Can I talk to her? Of course. In the hallway, Maya launched herself at her father. I'm sorry, Daddy. I know I wasn't supposed to make trouble again, but they were being so mean and Danny was crying and I couldn't just stand there. I know, baby girl. I know. Ethan held her tight. You did the right thing, but you also have to be smart about it. Sometimes the right thing means getting an adult instead of handling it yourself. The adults don't care. They just say kids will be kids and walk away. Victoria knelt down beside them. Then we'll change that starting now. How would you feel about helping me understand what's really happening here? Not to get anyone in trouble, but to make things better. Maya studied Victoria with those two knowing eyes. You're going to help. If you'll let me. Okay. But you should know Danny's family is even broker than us. His mom works 3 jobs and still can't afford new shoes. That's why the boys make fun of him. They think money makes them better. Money doesn't make anyone better, Victoria said firmly. It just makes them louder. But we can be loud, too, in ways that actually matter. On the drive back to the shop, Victoria had driven them to the school, waving off Ethan's protests. Maya chattered about the bullies and Danny and all the things she wished were different. Victoria listened with complete attention, occasionally asking questions that suggested she was taking mental notes. She's going to actually do something, isn't she? Ethan said quietly when Mia paused to catch her breath. I'm sitting right here, Victoria replied. But yes, I am. That school needs resources, and those kids need someone to care about more than test scores and order. Consider it an investment in the future. Everything's an investment to you. Not everything. Some things are just right. She pulled into the shop's parking lot. Besides, Maya's given me an idea. A program for schools in low-income areas, anti-bullying initiatives, resource support, maybe scholarships. I've been looking for the right education project, and she just handed it to me. Ethan shook his head, amazed. You're serious? Always. Well, almost always. I'm still terrible at cooking anything that isn't grilled cheese. Maya giggled from the back seat. Can you come over for dinner, Victoria? We're having spaghetti. It's not fancy, but Daddy makes really good sauce from the jar. Victoria met Ethan's eyes in the rear-view mirror. He saw the question there, the hesitation, the hope. We'd love to have you, he said. If you don't mind, truly not fancy. I would like nothing more. So, Victoria Hale, CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, found herself in a cramped apartment kitchen that evening, watching Ethan boil pasta while Maya set the table with mismatched plates and forks that didn't all match the knives. The contrast to her glass fortress should have been jarring. Instead, it felt like coming home to a place she'd never been. I can't cook, but I can chop, Victoria offered. Ethan handed her a cutting board and vegetables. You sure? Those look like expensive hands. These hands built a company. They can handle a carrot. They fell into an easy rhythm. Ethan at the stove, Victoria at the counter, Maya providing running commentary on her day while coloring at the small table. It was domestic and ordinary and absolutely perfect. You know what's weird? Victoria said, dicing a pepper with surprising competence. I have a kitchen 3 times this size with appliances most restaurants would kill for, and I've never cooked an actual meal in it. But this, she gestured at the cramped space, the mismatched everything, the controlled chaos of single parenthood. This feels real. This is real. Sometimes painfully real. But yeah, it's home. Victoria looked around. Really looked, seeing past the worn linoleum and the water stain on the ceiling and the furniture that came from thrift stores. You've built something beautiful here. You know that, right? Not the stuff, the life, the way Maya feels safe enough to be loud the way you've made enough from not enough. That's not luck. That's love. Ethan's throat tightened. I'm just doing my best. Your best is pretty damn good. Dinner was simple. Spaghetti sauce from a jar elevated with fresh vegetables, garlic bread that Ethan admitted came from the freezer section. But they ate together at the small table, Maya between them, and it felt like something significant was happening. Not romance, not yet, but the careful construction of something that might become a foundation. After Maya went to bed, after Victoria read her a story with surprising dramatic flair and promised to think about the anti-bullying program, Ethan and Victoria sat at the kitchen table with cheap wine Ethan had picked up for occasions that never came. Thank you for today, Ethan said. At the school, you didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. That principal was punishing Maya for having a spine. I couldn't let it stand. You were fierce. It was impressive, also slightly terrifying. Victoria smiled into her wine. I've spent years being fierce in boardrooms. Nice to use it for something that actually matters. She paused. Can I tell you something? Always. When I was in foster care, there was a girl, Melissa. She was small, quiet, easy target. The older kids made her life hell. I watched it happen for months. Told myself it wasn't my problem, that I needed to keep my head down and survive. Then one day, I walked past her crying in a bathroom, and I just snapped. I went after the kids, tormenting her, got myself moved to a different home for it. Did it help, Melissa? I don't know. I never saw her again. Victoria's voice cracked slightly, but I think about her sometimes. Wonder if I should have acted sooner, been braver. Your daughter is 6 years old and already braver than I was at 15. That's extraordinary. She learned it from watching other people be brave. From seeing that sometimes you stop even when it's scary. From you. From life. From necessity. From knowing that walking away isn't always the answer. Ethan reached across the table, taking Victoria's hand. You're being brave now. Building this program, showing up for Maya, letting yourself care about people instead of profits. That counts, does it? I'm 42 years old, Ethan. I've wasted so much time building walls and calling it success. What if it's too late to be the person I should have been? It's not. Look at what you've done in the past few weeks. You saved my shop. You're changing Maya's school. You're here in my kitchen drinking bad wine and caring about things that don't have ROI. That's not too late. That's exactly on time. Victoria's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. I don't know how to do this. How to be someone's what are we? Friends feels insufficient, but anything more feels presumptuous. We're whatever we decide to be. No rush, no expectations, just two people building something good. I like the sound of that. Victoria squeezed his hand. Though, I should warn you, I'm terrible at relationships. My marriage lasted 3 years before my ex-husband realized I was more interested in quarterly reports than intimacy. I'm a workaholic. I'm controlling. I have trust issues that would require a team of therapists to unpack. I'm a single father living paycheck to paycheck with a daughter who fights bullies and a future held together by your generosity. I haven't dated in 4 years because I can't afford a babysitter and wouldn't know where to start anyway. I'm scared of letting people in because everyone I've ever relied on has left. We're both disasters. Perfect match, then. They laughed, the tension breaking into something warmer. Outside, the city hummed its nighttime song, traffic and sirens, and the endless pulse of life continuing. Inside, two broken people sat at a thrift store table and dared to believe they might become something whole. Victoria stayed until nearly midnight, talking about everything and nothing. Her failed marriage, his absent ex-wife, their respective brands of loneliness. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and comfortable silences. The kind of talk that comes when people stop performing and start being real. I should go, Victoria said finally, though she made no move to stand. You have work tomorrow. So do you. Yes, but I'm the boss. I can show up late and call it executive privilege. Must be nice. It's lonely. Trust me, this. She gestured at the small apartment. The warmth of it is better. Ethan walked her to the door, suddenly awkward. Should he hug her, shake her hand? The uncertainty felt teenage, ridiculous, terrifying. Victoria solved the problem by pulling him into an embrace that felt like relief. She was shorter than him by several inches, fit perfectly under his chin, and smelled like expensive perfume mixed with garlic bread. It was perfect. Thank you, she whispered into his shoulder, for letting me in, for trusting me with your daughter, for making me feel like a person instead of a position. Thank you for caring, for showing up, for being brave enough to want this, even though it's terrifying. They pulled apart slowly, reluctantly. Victoria's hand lingered on his arm. Saturday, she said, come back to my place. You and Maya, I want to teach her to swim properly, and I want to spend more time with both of you. If that's okay. More than okay. Good. It's a date. Well, not a date. A friend date with your daughter as chaperone. Victoria grimaced. I'm terrible at this. You're doing fine. Liar, but a sweet one. She smiled genuine and unguarded. Good night, Ethan. Good night. He watched her walk to her car, waited until she pulled away, then closed the door and leaned against it. His apartment felt smaller somehow, but warmer, like Victoria had left something behind besides Maya's jacket. Hope maybe, or the possibility that his life could be bigger than survival. His phone buzzed. Victoria, I'm sitting in my driveway and I already miss your terrible wine and mismatched furniture. What have you done to me? Ethan smiled, typing back. Created a monster who appreciates the finer things like jar sauce and thrift stores. I'm doomed. Probably, but it's good company in the doom. The best sleep well, Ethan. You, too. He checked on Maya, fast asleep. Mr. Trunk tucked under her arm, a smile on her face, even in dreams. Then settled into his own bed. Tomorrow would bring the same struggles, the same careful budgeting, the same uncertainty. But tonight, Ethan let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, the struggle was worth it. Because on the other end of those late-night texts and spontaneous dinner invitations, was someone who saw him, really saw him, not as a project or a charity case, but as a person worth knowing, worth caring about, worth building something with. And Victoria, driving through the city toward her glass house on the hillside, felt the same unfamiliar warmth spreading through her chest. For years, she'd equated connection with weakness, caring with liability. Love was leverage waiting to be exploited. Trust was foolishness waiting to be punished. But Ethan Cole, with his oil-stained hands and fierce daughter, and refusal to accept help without offering something in return, was rewriting every equation she'd spent decades perfecting. She pulled into her driveway, stared at the beautiful empty house, and for the first time in years, wished someone was waiting inside. Wished for mismatched furniture and terrible wine, and the sound of a child's laughter echoing through rooms built for silence. Victoria sat in her car for a long time, engine off, letting herself feel it, the longing, the fear, the fragile hope that maybe it wasn't too late to build something real. Then she went inside, poured herself expensive wine that tasted hollow compared to Ethan's cheap bottle, and started making plans. Real plans. Not for market expansion or quarterly growth, but for a life that included swimming lessons and school programs and Saturday afternoons that didn't feel like solitary confinement. She opened her laptop and started drafting a proposal for the educational initiative Maya had inspired. Not because it made business sense, but because it was right. Because some things mattered more than profit margins. Because a 6-year-old girl had taught her that courage looked like standing up even when it cost you. And a mechanic with kind eyes had shown her that helping someone didn't require an angle. Victoria worked until 3 o'clock in the morning, fueled by purpose instead of obligation for the first time in memory. When she finally climbed into bed, exhausted but alive in a way she hadn't felt in years, her last thought before sleep was simple. She couldn't wait for Saturday. Saturday arrived with rainclouds threatening but never quite delivering. The sky hovering in that uncertain space between storm and sunshine. Ethan had learned to read weather like engines. Both told you what was coming if you paid attention to the signs. This felt like a clearing. Maya insisted on bringing not just Mr. Trunk, but also the rock collection Victoria had admired, carefully arranged in a shoe box she decorated with markers. She needs more things that matter, Maya explained with the simple wisdom that kept catching Ethan off guard. Her house is pretty, but it doesn't have enough love in it. And rocks will fix that. Rocks I picked special for her will, obviously. They arrived to find Victoria already outside, pacing her driveway in jeans and a t-shirt that probably costs more than Ethan's weekly grocery budget but looked wonderfully normal. She lit up when she saw them, the corporate armor completely absent, just genuine joy at their arrival. "I've been watching for you for 20 minutes, she admitted like a kid waiting for friends to arrive for a birthday party. "When's your birthday?" Mia asked immediately. "August 15th. When's yours?" "June 3rd. I'll be 7. That's a whole year older than 6. Practically ancient." Victoria caught Ethan's eye over Maya's head, and something warm passed between them. "I thought we'd swim first, then I have a surprise, if that's okay." The afternoon unfolded with the easy rhythm they were developing. Maya in the pool with Victoria patiently teaching her proper strokes. Ethan watching from a deck chair and feeling his chest tighten with something that felt dangerously close to belonging. Victoria was gentle with Maya, encouraging without pushing, celebrating small victories like they mattered more than quarterly earnings. Because to her, Ethan was beginning to understand they did. After swimming, Victoria led them to her home office, a room Ethan hadn't seen before. All floor-to ceiling windows and sleek furniture and screens displaying data he couldn't begin to interpret. But what caught his attention was the architectural model sitting on her desk, detailed and precise. "This is the new development," Victoria explained. "Where your shop will be, but I wanted to show you something." She pointed to a specific unit on the ground floor, corner location with large windows facing the street. "This one's yours if you want it." Ethan stepped closer, studying the model. The space was generous, well-positioned, exactly what he'd need. Victoria, this looks expensive. It's the agreed-upon rate, below market, remember. But there's more. She pulled out a tablet, pulled up blueprints. I talked to the developers about modifications. Adding a small apartment above the shop, 2 bedrooms, nothing fancy, but enough for you and Maya. It would be part of the lease agreement. You'd live where you work, save on rent, be there for her after school. Ethan's hands started shaking. You can't. That's too much. It's not too much. It's practical. The space was going to be storage anyway. This way, it actually helps someone. Victoria's voice softened. I know you're proud, Ethan. I know you don't want handouts, but I bet this isn't charity. This is me using resources I have to make your life easier because I care about you, both of you. Please let me do this. Daddy, we could live above your shop. Maya's eyes were enormous. Like in that book about the family that runs the bakery. Yeah, baby girl. Like that. And I could come see you whenever I wanted and you wouldn't have to drive so far and we'd have a real home that didn't keep changing. The hope in her voice cracked something in Ethan's chest. How many times had they moved? How many times had Maya packed up her life and pretended it didn't hurt? She was 6 years old and already fluent in the language of impermanence. If we did this, Ethan said carefully, looking at Victoria, I'd pay full rent on the apartment, whatever market rate is. I can't let you subsidize my housing, too. The apartment comes with the commercial lease, package deal. You're not getting out of this, Ethan Cole. Victoria, do you trust me? The question stopped him cold. Did he? It had been 3 weeks since that rainy highway. 3 weeks of watching Victoria show up again and again. 3 weeks of her proving that not everyone who offered help was looking for leverage. Yeah, he said finally. I do. Then trust that I know what I'm doing. Trust that this makes me happy. Trust that sometimes accepting help is the bravest thing you can do. Maya tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Can we say yes, please? I really want to live above your shop. Ethan looked at his daughter's hopeful face, at Victoria's determined expression, at the model representing stability. He'd never dared imagine. Every instinct screamed that this was too good, too much, too fragile to trust. But maybe that was the point. Maybe trust required ignoring instincts built from disappointment. Okay. Yes, we'll take it. Victoria's smile could have powered the entire city. Really, really. But I'm paying for the apartment. That's non-negotiable. Fine. We'll argue about that later. She turned to Maya. What do you think? Should we celebrate? Ice cream. I was thinking something bigger. How about we go look at the actual site? See where your dad's shop is going to be. The construction site was a mud pit surrounded by fencing. Hardly inspiring, but Victoria walked them through it like a tour guide, pointing out where things would be, describing the finished vision with such clarity, Ethan could almost see it. Maya ran ahead, claiming the spot that would become their apartment, spinning in circles with her arms out. We'll have windows, big ones. I can see the whole street from my room. Ethan stood beside Victoria, watching his daughter claim space in a future that actually felt possible. You're changing our lives. You know that, right? You changed mine first. That night on the highway, I wasn't exaggerating before. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped. I was broken, Ethan. Completely broken. And you didn't try to fix me, didn't judge me, just helped me get home safe. That simple kindness saved me. I just did what anyone would do. That's the thing. Anyone wouldn't. Most people drove past, but you stopped. And now I get to stop for you. That's not charity. That's balance. They stood in comfortable silence, Mia's laughter echoing across the construction site. The sky finally made its decision, releasing a soft rain that wasn't quite a storm, but was definitely wet. We should go, Victoria said, but made no move to leave. Probably, Ethan agreed equally still. Mia ran back to them, soaked and grinning. It's raining. Can we dance in it? Your dad might have thoughts about dancing in rain at a construction site. Ethan looked at Victoria's carefully styled hair already wilting in the drizzle at Maya's wild joy at the space that would become their home. Yeah, we can dance. So they did. 3 people in a muddy construction site spinning and laughing while rain turned the ground to soup and their clothes to wet rags. It was ridiculous and perfect and exactly the kind of moment Ethan would have never allowed himself before. Too impractical, too messy, too vulnerable. But vulnerability, he was learning, was where life actually happened. They ended up back at Victoria's house, dripping on her expensive floors while she frantically searched for towels. I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking. This wood is imported and probably ruined. Victoria, breathe. It's just water, right? Water, which has probably destroyed thousands of dollars of flooring. If it can't handle rain, you need better floors. Ethan took the towel she handed him. Besides, some things are worth a little damage. Dancing in construction sites, making memories, being spontaneous, letting a 6-year-old convince you that joy matters more than imported wood. Victoria looked at the puddles forming on her perfect floors and laughed. Actually laughed. When did I become someone who cares more about floors than fun? Probably around the same time you started building walls instead of relationships. But you're tearing those walls down now. With your help. With each other's help. Not bah. After warm showers, Maya and Victoria's enormous bathroom, declaring it fancy like a hotel, they settled in the living room with hot chocolate that Victoria admitted came from a mix because she still couldn't cook to save her life. The rain had picked up, drumming against the windows, creating a cocoon of warmth and safety. I have something to tell you both, Victoria said, setting down her mug. The education initiative Maya inspired. I presented it to my board yesterday. They approved full funding. Starting next quarter, we're launching in 15 schools across the district anti-bullying programs, resource support, counseling services, and a scholarship fund for students facing economic hardship. Maya's eyes went wide. You mean kids like Danny won't get made fun of anymore? We're going to try very hard to make sure they're supported and protected. And I was hoping if it's okay with your dad that you might help me. Talk to students about what it's like, what would actually help. Be kind of an advisor. I'm 6. Best advisors I know are people who tell the truth. Adults forget how. You haven't yet. Maya looked at Ethan. Can I? If you want to. It's a big responsibility. I want to help kids like Danny. He's my friend, and nobody should be mean to him just because his shoes are old. My shoes are old, too. Old shoes are just shoes that worked hard. Victoria's eyes shimmered. That's exactly the kind of wisdom we need. You're hired. Official title. Expert consultant on what actually matters. How much does it pay? Maya. Ethan started. What? Consultants get paid. I saw it on TV. Victoria laughed. You're right. How about this? For every meeting, you get one book of your choice and one experience. Like the zoo or a museum or swimming lessons or whatever you want to learn about. Deal. Maya stuck out her hand for a very serious handshake. When do I start? Next month after we get the program organized, which gives me time to learn how to talk to 6-year-olds without sounding like a corporate robot. You don't sound like a robot. You sound like someone who forgot how to play but is remembering. The observation landed with the weight of truth. Victoria blinked rapidly, clearly fighting tears. She's right, Ethan said softly. You're remembering, and it's beautiful to watch. The afternoon drifted into evening. Maya eventually fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from swimming and dancing and the general excitement of the day. Ethan carried her to Victoria's guest room, a space she admitted had never been used, and tucked her in with Mr. Trunk and a spare blanket Victoria produced from somewhere. When he returned to the living room, Victoria had poured wine. The good kind this time, Ethan suspected, though he still couldn't tell the difference. Thank you, she said. For today, for trusting me with this. For letting me be part of your family. Is that what we are? Family. I think so. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but in the ways that matter. Victoria curled into the corner of the couch, wine glass cradled in both hands. I never thought I'd have this. People who cared about me for me, not for what I could do for them. A child who tells me I'm remembering how to play. A man who stopped his entire life to help a stranger. You would have done the same. I don't know if I would have before. I like to think I would, but honestly, I probably would have driven past, called 911, maybe, but kept going. Too busy, too important, too wrapped up in my own problems. She took a sip of wine. You made me want to be better, and I'm trying. Really trying. Ethan sat beside her close enough to feel her warmth. You're succeeding. Look at what you've done in less than a month. The shop, the school program, showing up for Maya, opening your home. That's not trying. That's doing. It still feels fragile. Like I'm one bad day away from falling back into old patterns. We all are. That's what makes choosing different so brave. Victoria leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture so simple and trusting it made Ethan's breath catch. They sat like that while rain continued its percussion against glass while Maya slept peacefully in the next room while something fundamental shifted between them. I'm falling for you, Victoria whispered. Both of you, it terrifies me. I don't know how to do this without breaking it. By showing up, by being honest, by letting yourself be imperfect. I'm very good at imperfect. So am I. We'll figure it out together. Victoria turned to look at him, and Ethan saw everything in her eyes. Fear and hope and longing and the terrifying vulnerability of letting someone matter. He saw the same things reflected back because he felt them, too. This free fall into caring about someone who could hurt him, who could leave, who could decide he wasn't enough. But he was so tired of being enough alone. Can I kiss you? Victoria asked. Or is that moving too fast? I don't know the rules here. It's been so long since I've wanted to kiss someone for reasons that had nothing to do with strategic advantage. Ethan answered by closing the distance between them, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was gentle and searching and felt like the first honest thing he'd done in years. Victoria made a small sound of surprise that melted into contentment, her hand coming up to cup his face with a tenderness that suggested she was also remembering how this worked. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. That was nice, Victoria said, very articulate. You definitely went to business school. Shut up, she kissed him again. I'm out of practice. Give me time to remember how romance works. We've got time. All the time we need. They sat together until late, talking and kissing and planning a future that included shop openings and school programs and the 1,000 small moments that build a life. Eventually, exhaustion won and Ethan carried a still sleeping Maya to the car while Victoria stood in the doorway looking reluctant to let them go. Same time next week, she asked. Actually, I was thinking maybe dinner at my place Tuesday. I'll cook something more ambitious than spaghetti. You don't have to impress me. I want to. Besides, you should see how I handle chicken. It's almost competent. Victoria laughed. Okay. Tuesday, I'll bring wine. The good stuff. The cheap stuff is fine. The cheap stuff is terrible, but charming, like everything else about you. Ethan kissed her goodnight, soft and sweet, then drove home with Maya dozing in the back seat and his heart feeling too big for his chest. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets washed clean and reflecting city lights like scattered stars. His phone buzzed at a red light. Victoria, I already miss you. Is that ridiculous? That feels ridiculous. He typed back. Not ridiculous. I feel the same. Sleep well. You, too. Thank you for today, for every day, for stopping. Thank you for being worth stopping for. The light changed. Ethan drove toward the apartment that would soon be temporary, toward the future that was rapidly becoming real. He thought about the construction site that would become his shop, the apartment above it that would become their home. The woman who'd gone from stranger to friend to something more in the span of weeks. Life was strange and unpredictable and full of moments that could go either way depending on choices made in split seconds. He was grateful he'd chosen to stop. Months passed in a blur of construction updates and school meetings and quiet dinners that became routine. Victoria integrated into their lives seamlessly, showing up for Maya's school events, bringing coffee to the shop on Ethan's long days, learning to cook more than grilled cheese with determined focus. Ethan found himself at Victoria's house more often than his own apartment, comfortable in spaces that once intimidated him. The education initiative launched to widespread praise. Maya took her role as expert consultant seriously, sitting in on planning meetings and offering observations that cut through corporate jargon to the heart of what kids actually needed. The program provided resources, training, and support to schools across the district. Bullying incidents dropped. Academic performance improved. Lives changed in small but measurable ways. Danny's mother cried when she learned about the scholarship fund that would ensure her son could attend college someday. She hugged Ethan in the school parking lot, thanking him for raising the kind of daughter who stood up instead of looking away. She learned it from watching you, Ethan had said. She learned it from having a good heart. You gave her that. The shop's construction stayed on schedule. Ethan spent weekends at the site, watching his future take shape in steel and concrete and glass. Victoria came with him often, hard hat perched on her head, asking questions about workflow and equipment and the thousand details that would make the space functional. "You care about this," Ethan observed one Sunday afternoon. "Of course I do. It's yours. That makes it important. You've built a multi-billion-dollar company. My shop is a rounding error." Victoria turned to face him fully. "Your shop represents everything I forgot to value while building that company. Honest work, community, making things better through care and skill. This matters more than any quarterly report I've ever filed." By the time the development was complete, 18 months after that rainy night on the highway, Ethan and Victoria had built something solid. Not perfect, they still argued about his refusal to let her pay for things, about her workaholic tendencies, about how to balance their very different worlds. But the arguments felt productive, like they were building something together rather than defending separate territories. Moving day arrived with perfect weather and more help than Ethan expected. Marcus showed up, apologetic but sincere, helping move equipment. Customers Ethan had served for years came by with offers of labor and casseroles. Victoria orchestrated everything with the efficiency of a military campaign, while Maya directed furniture placement with absolute authority. "The couch goes here because it gets the best light." Obviously. Obviously, Victoria agreed solemnly. "You're the expert." By evening, Cole's Auto Repair had a new home. The shop was pristine, equipment perfectly arranged, ready to serve the community. Above it, the apartment glowed with warmth, furnished simply but comfortably, filled with the mismatched pieces Ethan loved and new things Victoria had insisted on contributing. Maya's room had large windows overlooking the street, exactly as promised. She decorated it with her rock collection, pictures she'd drawn, and a new bookshelf Victoria had filled with titles about brave girls who changed the world. "This is really ours?" Maya asked, standing in the middle of her room with wonder written across her face. "Really? Ours," Ethan confirmed. "For as long as we want it. Forever. Then I want it forever." That night, after Maya was asleep and the chaos had settled, Ethan and Victoria sat on the small balcony off the apartment, looking out over the city. The street below was quiet, the shop locked and ready for its first official day tomorrow. "You did it," Victoria said. "Built something stable. We did it. I couldn't have done this without you. You would have found a way. You always do. I just made it easier. You made it possible. There's a difference." Ethan took her hand. "Thank you for all of it. For stopping when I stopped. For caring when you could have walked away. For showing Maya what it looks like when adults actually show up for each other." Victoria leaned against him. "Thank you for reminding me that success isn't just about building empires. It's about building lives, relationships, moments like this." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights, feeling the weight and gift of everything they'd created together. It wasn't a fairy tale. There would be hard days ahead, challenges neither could predict. But they'd faced them together with Maya between them, building a family from broken pieces and stubborn hope. "I love you," Victoria said quietly. "I don't think I've ever meant that before. Not really, but I mean it now. I love you, too. I love both of us do. I know that's the scary part, but also the best part." "Yeah, it is." The next morning, Cole's Auto Repair officially opened at its new location. Ethan's first customer was Danny's mother, bringing her car for an oil change she could now afford thanks to the better-paying job she'd found with Victoria's help. The second was Marcus, sheepish and hoping to rebuild a bridge he'd burned. The third was a stranger who'd seen the sign and needed brake work. By afternoon, the garage was humming with the familiar rhythm Ethan loved. Victoria stopped by during lunch with sandwiches, staying to watch him work with that same fascinated attention from months ago. Maya came down after school. Homework spread across the small office desk doing math problems while her father changed a transmission. When customers asked about the girl in the corner, Ethan introduced her with pride. "This is Maya. She's the reason I do this. I'm also an expert consultant," Maya would add, "for important education things." Life settled into a new pattern. Work and school, dinners together more often than not, weekends that included swimming at Victoria's house, and movie nights in the apartment above the shop. Victoria learned to cook 3 more dishes beyond grilled cheese. Ethan learned to let her help without fighting it every time. Maya grew taller, braver, more certain of her place in a world that had once felt unstable. One evening, 6 months after the shop opened, Victoria arrived with papers and a nervous expression Ethan had learned to recognize. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's right, actually. But I'm terrified to ask because it might be too much too soon, and I don't want to scare you, Victoria. Breathe. What is it? She handed him the papers. Adoption paperwork for Maya. I want to be her mother officially, legally. Not to replace Sarah or take anything away from your relationship, but to make permanent what already feels true. I want to be your mom and your wife eventually, if you'll have me. But that's a separate question, and I'm getting ahead of myself. And Ethan kissed her, cutting off the nervous rambling. When he pulled back, he was smiling. Ask her. She should decide. So they asked Mia together, explaining what adoption meant, what it would change, and what would stay the same. Mia listened with her characteristic seriousness, then asked one question. Would you be my mom forever? Like you couldn't change your mind. Forever. Victoria promised. No changing my mind. I love you, Maya. I want to be your mom more than anything. Okay, then. Yes. Can I call you mom now, or do we have to wait for the papers? Victoria's tears came fast and honest. You can call me whatever you want. Mom, it is. Maya hugged her fiercely. But you have to keep teaching me to swim and making grilled cheese and coming to my school things. Deal. All of it forever. They became a family officially 6 months later. Paperwork finalized, last names changed, everything legal and binding and real. By then, Victoria had moved most of her things into the apartment above the shop. The glass house on the hillside sold to a young family who would fill it with the noise and chaos it had always needed. Don't you miss it? Ethan asked one night, watching her navigate their much smaller kitchen. The space, the luxury. Not for a second. That house was beautiful, but it was a monument to loneliness. This, she gestured at their cramped quarters, at Maya's art covering the fridge, at the sounds of the city filtering up through windows. This is home. On the anniversary of the night they met, Ethan and Victoria drove back to Highway 47. They pulled over at the exact spot where he'd stopped, where she'd been walking barefoot in the rain, where two lives had collided and changed trajectory entirely. I think about that night a lot, Victoria said. How close I came to just disappearing. How easy it would have been to let go. I'm grateful you didn't. I'm grateful you stopped. Most people wouldn't have. Most people didn't. But I couldn't drive past someone who needed help. Even when I had my own problems, my own reasons to keep going. Ethan took her hand. Best decision I ever made. Same. Well, second best. First best was saying yes when you offered help. Learning to accept instead of always giving. That saved me as much as you stopping. They stood on the shoulder of Highway 47 while traffic rushed past, while the world continued its endless momentum, while two people who'd been broken separately became whole together. We should go, Victoria said eventually. Mia's waiting. We promised her pancakes for dinner. The happiness kind. Is there any other? They drove back to the shop, to the apartment above it, to the life they'd built from kindness and courage, and the simple choice to stop when stopping mattered. Maya met them at the door, already covered in flour from attempting to start dinner herself. I may have made a mess, she announced. We'll clean it up together, Victoria said. That's what families do. So they did. 3 people in a small kitchen making pancakes and laughing and being imperfectly, completely happy. Ethan Cole had stopped on a rainy highway for a stranger who needed help, expecting nothing in return. He'd gained a partner, a family, a future brighter than any he'd imagined. Victoria Hale had been pulled from the storm by a man who asked for nothing, who gave without calculating returns. She'd found purpose, love, and the courage to be human instead of invincible. And Maya, brave, wise, fierce Maya, had gained a mother who showed up, a home that stayed still, and proof that doing the right thing mattered even when it was hard. None of them had set out to be heroes. They just refused to walk away when walking away would have been easier. And that choice, that simple act of showing up, had changed everything.